think we got to turn up the volume on the mics a little bit, but turn down the volume on the speakers. All right. You know what? We're just going to work with that for a second. Let me check and see if I'm on. Maybe I'm not on. All right. Here we go. Now I'm on, right? So welcome everybody to another edition of Real Talk Straight Talk. The last Tuesday of the month, so therefore it's the last conversation we're going to have on Black history. We've been doing this for the whole month. Got to send a very special shout out to my panel today. On my left, welcome back to Angel. She hasn't been on the panel for a minute. I even got Pastor Charmaine back. Pastor C, welcome back.
Thank you, Carmen.
I don't need to introduce the guy all the way down there. You know, I talk about him all the time. Goes by the name of the Professor. He actually has a name. I just choose to call him the Professor, right? So, Professor, how you doing?
Pretty good, thank you.
All right. Like I said, this is the last conversation we're going to have about Black History Month. It started off with the Black History Coordinating Committee. Got to send a shout out to Carl Cardigan. Also got to send a shout out to Melissa Adler and George. Ran into George on the weekend. Beautiful conversation on what we should teach in the schools. So that was last week's conversation. We talked a lot about what the curriculum should be. Should Black history be taught in the schools? What should it be, and what exactly should be taught? So now it brings us to this episode. But before I get into this episode, I got to send shout-outs, of course, to our sponsors. Got to send, of course, over here. She's somewhere around the room. Angel from the Fix Hair Salon. Oh, big shout-outs to her. Y'all can't see her, but she's here. Of course, we are shooting on location, and today, once again, we are at Up Like 7 Barbershop. Big shouts to Foots and the whole crew. As we keep with the barbershop theme, got to send a big shouts to Kwame United Cuts, Jiggy and the wife and the whole staff of Paradise Bar and Grill. We were there this weekend. We'll talk about that. I'll try to get a little bit about that if we get you with the conversation. Of course, I got to go out of town and talk about my people in Ottawa, 613 Rhythm Movements Community Association and Flow Seniors. They do great work with the seniors in Ottawa. And last but not least, Hamilton, Ontario with Soul Kitchen Radio, Big John and Soul Kitchen Radio. Once again, big shouts and thanks to all our sponsors week to week. The conversation. We kind of touched on this conversation in December, right? And we talked about the origins of Christmas and all that stuff. And so if you're going to talk about Christmas, of course, you're going to talk about religion. So here we are talking about the church, right? And I put it on the fly, I put it as religion, church, and Black history, right? Because they're all separate. Religion, church, and the Black history. So I'm going to lead in, and I'm going to give you a little bit of info. And I'm going to go to just around slavery days, when they shipped the slaves to North America. And I'm just going to deal with North America. A lot of the slaves came via West Africa. So they had, the West African teachings, right? And, it wasn't Christianity, it wasn't Protestant, right? So they started off in West Africa. They came here, and one of the first religions to take hold was Christianity. And with that, we had we got some guests, so they're here, and we got to send a big shout out to all our guests in the studio. And now I'm going to get back to the conversation. The Protestant movement was big. There's a church called AME. They came in about 1767, around that area. Protestant was the next where the Black, movement, where they felt most free. There was a little bit of Catholic. The church was there a little bit, but one of the things about the Catholic Church at that time was it taught obedience to the owners. So we're going to talk about that. Whereas when the Methodists and all the other Protestant religions came in, they talked about, they encouraged the conversations of freedom, as opposed to, like I said, the Catholic Church. So that's just a brief history. As we get a little bit later on, as we roll into the 1900s, Islam started to take hold in the U.S. So we've got Protestant with Methodist Church. We've got the West African teachings that they came with, West African religions that they came with, and then later on it moved in a little bit to like I said, Islam. But the most predominant of all churches would be the Protestant movement, right? So I'm going to take it from there, and I'm going to, first of all, let me truly welcome back Tabby. You've been gone for a minute.
I have it.
You gave birth. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Everything is good, I hope.
Yes.
All right. You've been very opinionated when you've been on this podcast, so you've got some serious views on religion and everything. I've given you a little background. Where do you stand in terms of the church, right? I'm not going to say religion, the church and Black history. You told me to hit you up from early, so I'm doing it. I'm going first.
I never said that, but okay. Church and Black history. I know why it was used, and it was more of keeping us enslaved mentally. But I don't know, nowadays,
I'm just going to go back to the Black history thing. And like I said, if you're going to talk about enslavement, I'm going to say definitely the Catholic Church has led in it, because if you're going to tell people to respect the owners and listen to what the owners say, that means you're encouraging slavery, right? So we're going to really get into that topic. Pastor Charmaine.
Yes, Colin, how are you?
Your views on the Catholic Church as opposed to the Protestant Church?
Well, no one wants to be told at that time, I'm sure, to be told that they have to listen to their slave master, because in that time and period, that would have been, the church had a place for the white person, but for the black person, it was not a place that when you're told about being a slave, that you should listen to your master who is being abusive, who's being abusive to you as an individual, or so that would not have been a good thing. But during the process of the time, there was also areas, as you said, that they were taught to be free, to be who they're supposed to be. So not with the Catholics, but with the other parts of the religion. So that's my take on that.
So now I'm going to get back to Professor. What are your takes on the early, I would say 1700s, 17 to 1800s?
I'm not necessarily sure that the role that the church played then has changed significantly in modern day society. I think during this age where this whole reconciliation, equity, diversity movement that's going across Canada and the United States, and one group that is still off limits, that nobody has spoken about, is still the church. The church needs to decolonize, and the religious leaders are too scared to speak up about it, but they're equally as guilty as the slave masters in the past in perpetuating those same narratives that I think is holding down black people. It's not healthy.
What specifically do you think is holding down black people? in terms of religion? Where, I guess I'm going to get into where do you think we went wrong? Because like I said, there was the Catholic Church that spoke about, hey, respect, you have to literally bow down to your owners because they weren't. But then the Protestant Church started to talk about you can be free. They encouraged that kind of conversation. So, and that's why I say at that time.
I think you're missing a point there. And I don't want to go too much in church history because this is not a show, I believe you said, about the history of the church. The Protestant movement had their differences with the Roman Catholic Church, and that led to a lot of differences and splinter groups over time. The era that I want to focus on is the role that the church played in advancing the lives of black people. So I think black people existed before the church. That's my opinion. I'm not scared about that. Our history predates the church. Because if you look about it, Jomo Kenyatta said, I spoke to you about this already, that when the missionaries came to Africa, we had the land, they had the Bible. They taught us to pray and to close our eyes. When we opened our eyes, we had the Bible and they have the land. So the question should be, what about those authentic African forms of worship? Where are they today? Why are they not relevant, and why is black people still hooked to saying the only way is Christianity when I don't think, and I've channeled any one of the panelists to show me one black country, just one, I'm not asking for two, that Christianity has worked for black people. One.
And that's a good point because if we look at it, Christianity hasn't worked for a lot of people, but specifically black people. We're in the same boat as the indigenous because they came and it hasn't worked for the indigenous as well.
I'm saying we're in the same spot we were from when Jomo Kenyatta spoke. I want you to tell me, if I say name me one country that Islam has worked for, you name me several of them. If I tell you that one country that Christianity can work for, you can name many of them, but I want you to tell me one that the black people, it has worked for them.
I don't think there is one.
There isn't one.
I don't think there is because if you look at what is supposed to happen, right, in the basis of Christianity, right, and I guess we have to literally break down what the religion says, what it's supposed to be, its tenets, right? Much different from Islam, and as we know, Islam has been there in the U.S. Like I said, it came in the 1900s, and it's continued to evolve in today. And I think one of the things it adheres to is the family setting in a way that Christianity is not. But to get back to the answer to that question,
why do you say Christianity is not geared to the family?
I think it and I guess I'm going to get back to the basis of Christianity. When it was formed, right? At that point, it was in its purest form. I think I have problems sometimes with Christianity in terms of Christ, the teachings of what Christ taught of. I don't think it's only to the smallest degree being followed. I have a lot of problems with certain, I wouldn't say churches, but yes, it is churches. It would be specifically with the Anglican Church, with the Catholic Church. I see things such as, I ask myself, where are they in terms of being with the people? A lot of churches nowadays, I don't see going out with the people. Right? And I'm going to get to, like I said, the Anglican and the Catholic churches. They put in a system in place that does not directly deal with the people. It's come to church. I'm in my robes. I'm in my collar. It's come to church. This is the system we have. And I think nowadays, especially nowadays, it's about being with the people the same way Christ was with the people. When Christ started off, Christ had his disciples. He said he broke bread with everybody. The church nowadays, right? And that's why I talk about the family. They're not with the family. No matter what
when we say the church.
All right, let me clarify.
Okay.
The Anglican Church, I'm calling down the Anglican and the Catholic Church.
Because
the church
I
is with that specific structure. The structure is meant to hold people down. They're not liberating anybody, right? Especially nowadays, if you're not out there with the people, if you're preaching on high and you're not literally out there side by side with the people, then you're not doing what Christ had said you should do. Now, that's and I'm going to say that's on the top end of the structure, because I happen to know pastors that are out there, or I should say priests that are out there, and even they will tell you that some of the things that they're doing when they go out there, they get that it's not what the structure is being made to do. So big shouts to all the pastors. I know when I talk about, I happen to know Pastor Green. I happen to be, I've done some things with him. So there is a difference, right? There is a.
And with any facility or any structures, there are certain rules, and over the years things will evolve and change, some for the worse, some for the better. So again, when we speak, are we speaking still in the past, or are we speaking for the present?
Well, again, my argument is that I don't see much has changed. And I started off with my quote of Jomo Kenyatta, and I could go, so I'll ask you directly, name me one black country that we could hold up and say Christianity has actually worked for this black country. And when I'm saying work, I'm talking about in terms of their health, their education, economic prosperity, spiritual prosperity. Just name one that you could say this country is an example of how religion can help to transform the people. And I can't find one.
Okay, and you said with Islam you can find many.
Yeah, when you look at the Middle East, all Islam is working for them. But I'm saying I'm yet to see one country that is black that is actually working for us, and I can't find any.
And I'm going to ask you, is it the religion that's not working? Or is it the people that are not working? Is it the religion or is it the people?
You can like shield the religion from the people. Okay? So you can't try to say, hey, it's not the religion, it's the people. Because when you take away a people concept of God, and you give them an alien concept of God, that you now turn around and tell them if they believe in this God will do miracles for them, and this God will do this for them, but it's not working for that people. You see what I'm saying? You go to any church, Orthodox, Roman Catholic, they have a picture of a white Jesus. And how is it you have black people worshiping a white God? No, you don't really need me to ask you if that makes sense, right?
And I think we're going to get back to the Christmas conversation where we talked about
but we don't even need to go there. We just need to stay on point on this. So I'm saying you have a nation of people worshiping a God that doesn't look like them. I can give you anecdotes to support my argument. Now, have you seen a picture of a Hindu God?
Yes.
Right. Would you say that God looks like the Hindu people or it looks like us?
The Hindus.
Okay. Have you seen a picture of a Buddhist God? Who does the Buddhist God look like?
Their people.
Okay. Have you seen the picture of the black man's God?
Yes, I have.
Who does it look like?
The Rasta.
Very few churches will actually put up pictures of, And that's why I said it's also about the people. That's why I say it's about the people. Because I have seen churches that have actually put up pictures, and their pictures are of a brown and black Jesus.
Okay. A brown and black Jesus.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And which major church have you gone in?
And that's where I broke it down to churches. If you know, I started off and I specifically said things like the Anglican Church, and I said things
so
like...
the question should be then, why are all the splinter churches? Because most of the churches that black people follow, they're a splinter primarily from the U.S. or in England. Why is then if a few local people change that, they cannot lobby the people they report to in America or in the U.S. to say, we're not working with that white Jesus anymore. And by the way, we're not going to send any more tithes until you take it down.
Well, and then I'm going to answer you like this, right? That's why some of those splinter churches are individual churches.
Exactly.
They are not part of a bigger
body.
But even their theology is not mainstream. It's a separate theology, and I don't want to talk about theology. I just want to talk about like the role that they play.
Right. And if they're there and they're preaching a black Jesus, and
I'm not advocating to preach a black Jesus.
No, but some of them are.
You see what I'm saying?
Some of them have decided that they've looked at the Bible and they've decided that Jesus could not have been white. Mm-hmm. He had to be of a darker hue, and they're going along with that way. Are they the mainstream churches? No, because a lot of the mainstream churches still hold on to the teachings that we know come from and as you know, almost all Protestant churches are broken off of either Anglican or Catholic, right? So they still hold. So those people, in their learned position, I have a problem with. There are people that have moved beyond that and have decided, hey, we look at the Bible, we're trying to learn more, and we address certain issues, which is why I get back to saying that is it in the mainstream? No. But have there churches that have broken off and decided that they're going to study the Bible a little bit more and see where it pertains to them? Then my answer is yes.
And we have to also remember also that there are some churches that have been they've been helpful to the black community. They have been supportive to the black community, and these were black churches. They may not be on the grander scale like the Catholic, which is a bigger denomination, but they have been supportive to help blacks to come through and help blacks to get education, help blacks to have a voice, help blacks to teach blacks how to read and write. When some of us came, we didn't know those abilities. We didn't have a voice. There were black churches who spoke in Parliament. There were black churches who helped black people to move forward.
I'm not disputing that, Pastor. I'll restate my point again.
Please do.
Okay? I'm not disputing that. The overarching theme, when you think about Christianity, you think about a white God. So even though you have few local churches here and there that are moving away from that dominant theme, the overarching culture still exists. And in most of biblical print literature and stuff that people go to the theological seminary and study, the imagery is still there. And it does not depict black people in a good light. So you have on one end God that is white and the devil is black. And this is what I'm saying. The church community as a whole still is not addressing those. And in today's situation, when you're looking at reconciliation and reparation, it is not effective in terms of making those changes. And that's why I've put it out there to you to say, tell me one country, one, I'm not asking for two, one, that you could look at it and you could say, these are a Christian black country and it's working for them in terms of economic prosperity, security, education, and health. And I'm saying you cannot find one.
And I didn't dispute you on that point.
No, the point is if you can't find one, then what is going on? Something is wrong.
Because I think it needs it needs that movement from the one church, from that one church to grow into two churches, to go into three churches. I shouldn't say church.
But why are black leaders not challenging the religious establishment? That's another question. Why are they not challenging that?
Once again, we get down
Challenging
to
them
the people.
in what way? Because
To decolonize religion in a way that there's more equity. So my children, your grandchildren, when they think of Christianity and when they think of the Bible, they don't think of it as a white establishment, which we know by empirical data it is not. But that is what it's presented. And if you control the minds of the people that you're enslaved, then you've done your job.
So once again, we get back to the people. Once again, your argument still brings it back to the people. So why are the people failing? I think that's one of the biggest questions.
Because the religious leaders still not have accepted the point that I'm putting across here.
Right, and that's where we're going. It's the people that have to accept the point. The religion didn't fail. The religion didn't fail them. They're people that colonize and put out their point of view, and we bid into their point of view. But if you go back, just like what you do, you go back and you read and you understand. If they were to do the same thing, then maybe some of their conclusions would change. So once again, it comes down to the people, which is what my point. I didn't disagree where you said, okay, you can't find a progressive, you can't find a
progressive country.
Right. I didn't disagree with you. What I did say was it comes down to the people. Just like how in so many countries that say they're practicing democracy, it's not really democracy. There's so many countries it's failing. Any system, you look at what the system is supposed to be, and I'll talk about communism, capitalism, socialism. But in all those, you're rare to find true communism or true socialism because people take it and adapt it to what they want it to be. The Caucasians, the white people came and they took and they started to distort the Bible. The Bible was being distorted from probably day 2, right? If you look at how the Anglican Church started because was King Henry decided right. So they're distorting the Bible. Now we came here, or you know what? They went to Africa first, right? And like you said, they came with the Bible. They left with the land, and they gave us the Bible, right? At that point, you still have to talk about people, right?
I get what you're saying, Colin, but even going further, I didn't want to push the conversation there, but just because you went back there, what happened to our indigenous forms of religion that we had before? So based on the analogy that you put forward, I am supposed to accept that the religion of my people, my ancestors, were Christianity. And I can't accept that. No. Let me finish. When I talk about decolonizing religion, I am talking about here in Canada, you'll go to a ceremony and you'll have them acknowledge the native people, and they will come and they will pay their tributes to God in their traditional way. We don't have that anymore because it's taken away, and there have been so many generations that we don't even know what it is. We have a foreign belief system that was imposed on us that we still haven't decolonized ourselves from.
But again, as he said, it's the people, because the indigenous people, they themselves had the same sort of concept where the white man came in and tried to take away their culture, but they fought for their culture and they held on to their culture. They held on their beliefs, even although they were opposed. Rather, we took on Christianity as a culture from generations back, because I was not around at that time. So in that time, the people of that time took on Christianity. So as it still goes back to us as individuals.
So if you are agreeing, and I want to hear from the sister there, if you are agreeing that we took it on, we took on something alien. It wasn't ours. Is that what you're saying?
No, we took on something that we weren't. If we're coming from Africa, we did not have Christianity at that point. We know that. That's the truth. So we were introduced. Okay. And I'm just going by history because I wasn't born then.
That's what I'm going by.
I wasn't born. So I have to take what history says, right? We came into that, but Christ, we know that Christ came for all of us. Because we're created in God's image. So whatever the image is, that's what we're created in. And as I said again, there are people, there are still people that are still believe that their God looks like them. There are black people who believe that. It may not be a big majority,
believing in something doesn't make it right. Believing in something doesn't make it right.
So then the changes come from where?
No. I am not a religious leader. I'm asking the questions, and I'm asking the questions because they have affected me, and I've seen how it's affecting people. Because today, a black person they'll kill for religion, or they'll kill in the name of religion.
Everybody kills in the name of religion.
Okay?
Everybody.
Well, I'm not doing that.
Neither do I.
But you see what I'm saying? But I'm saying, if you can acknowledge right here, in front of the two of us, that it is an alien concept, then the question should be, why are we not going beyond that to find our roots and to reconnect with our authentic ways of worship? And like the Aboriginal people in Australia, like the First Nations people in Canada, make a shift from it and go back to what our
But you have to also understand, not all the indigenous people have decided to go back to their religion. Everyone has the right to choose a religion. Everyone. That's a nice thing about diversity and inclusion. You have a choice. So if you choose to go back to your native or my native culture, that's your choice. If you choose to believe that Christ is who he is now, how you see him, then that's your choice. And I thank God I have a choice. And I may not believe, if the Rastafarian believe that Selassie is God, then I respect that. That is his choice. So it is a choice that you believe in. I don't see that I have to say that I have to go back to my native. It doesn't disqualify me from being black. It doesn't disqualify me from being who I am. Because I have a choice to believe in who I believe. When you talk about Islam, there are people or Muslims, or they're black and white Muslims. And even they too have even distinction even in their religion. If you really talk to someone from that part, they still have distinction between their religions. So the point is, when it comes to religion, it is never a cookie cutter concept. It's never a cookie cutter. I believe it is how you believe. It's what you feel. It is an individual belief.
Okay, I take your point.
And I'm going to get back to...
I want to hear what
I want to hear sometime, and then I'm going to get back to the professor.
No, so I believe what you're saying is correct. Somewhere along the way, it got misguided. We went from, if you want to know anything now about our history, you would have to go back to the elder generation, past and past. Because now if you ask your mother, your father, they don't know. Your grandparents, everybody knew your history of where you came from, how it originally came about, how church came about. And I noticed from when I grew up to now, the church has changed. I don't see the community like it used to be. We strayed along the way. And I believe that what you said is correct. There is not one country you can ever find that's stuck to our roots. We've been misguided. We've been comfortable. I think we're comfortable.
Exactly.
I think we're comfortable with how things are going, and we're just abiding by it. I don't think anybody actually took in to the fact that there's more behind what the Bible says. There's more behind of what we are, where we came from. And when this is conveying through movies and through religion with Christ, Jesus is always white. We've never argued. We've never even made our own movie. Look at all these famous black producers. you guys are saying you're from the church. How come we don't have a movie from us? But you're quick to put all the slavery movies out there, and there's nothing for religion. So religion is not important. Just correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
There are movies that I watch that is about church movies that are black. But again, we have to take some responsibility. We cannot just push off our things and blame everyone else. If we were in the dark ages, or if we were not educated before, if we were not aware before, now is the time that we are aware. And when you say to me, or someone says to me, oh, I'm not a religious leader, it does not take a religious leader to make changes. It means if you believe in something and you have a passion for something, and you need that, you move forward. You're going to have to push, but you move forward. You don't have to be a religious person to do that. It's what you believe in. We have to start tearing down. Because if I say, okay, I'm not religious, then I'm not going to do nothing. Nothing is ever going to change.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we all, when we were young, had no choice group in the church?
Right.
So it starts from the church.
Mm-hmm. And it also, and once it starts,
it starts at home.
With people.
It starts with people.
Proof, the professor is living proof about the people, because every point that the professor made, I love, right? Because he is right about certain things. But one thing I know, just like how the professor went out and looked and learned, right? That's where, like you said, you brought it down to where our church leaders failing, right? And if you notice, I even talked about that. Yes, because the information is there. The information is there. You went and got it, and you can speak passionate about it. So it's not necessarily the system, right? It's about the people deciding, right? A church leader has a choice to make. I've got this Bible in front of me. I'm either going to expound the reality of what the Bible says, or I'm going to give the sanitized version.
But it still comes back to going home.
I'm talking about the Bible. No, I'm going to get to. Let me get to the other point. Those are for those that decided that they're going to embrace Christianity, right? Now, there's people like you, once again, that decided, that read and continue to read and realize, you know what? Our history is not Christianity, right? Our history. We've forgotten our religions before Christianity. We forgot that, there was so many, and they talked about it. If you go back in history, but they talked about, and I read it even up to today, West African religions that came to America first, right? There are a few people that still know it, because back in the days in New Orleans, they had so many different things, which included voodoo and some other things, and they still remembered some of those religions. So somewhere along the way, people decided that either the fight it was too much of a fight to continue, but it still comes down to the people.
I'm going to disagree with you, because I said this earlier on. Maybe you didn't catch it, and I'm going to say it again. The hardest thing to talk to black people about is religion. You can do anything else, but you cannot touch your white Jesus. The white man has already said that. Right. There's nothing going to change about it. Right? Even if I were to tell you something was going on our way, how we communicated with the Creator before they came, you're still going to tell me that God and this and that, and this is the reason why we have to work with what the white man has. There's no going back beyond that. That's dead for black people. Okay? And I think a musician said it best, that will your white God save you from white man oppression? Yes. He won't.
Right.
Okay? He won't.
So isn't that once again the people deciding that
the religious leaders is have to start from there, because the people listen to them. Right. I am a madman, I can tell you that. You bring any Christian here and quickly I'll be written up. Because what I am saying does not align with what they're saying. I don't work on beliefs. You have to deal with facts. Okay? You can't do anything on belief. The police stops you, he said you were going 50. Officer, I believe I was going 30. Here's the proof. You were going 50, you're punished for it. So belief doesn't work like that. But I want to move the conversation a little bit further than that. Okay? Because the religious leaders don't take time to study black history and make the connections in the Bible. I want to talk about the story of Moses, and we know that Moses was born where? In Egypt. Maybe a lot of religious leaders don't even know where Egypt is. Egypt is in Africa. Okay? All right. So in all their depiction of Moses as a white man, now you tell me, how could a white person, if Moses was a white person, you think Moses could be living in the house of the Pharaoh with all black people and they wouldn't recognize that, hey, this guy doesn't look like one of us? You see what I'm saying?
But we are...
No. You get the point what I'm saying?
Yes.
Moses could never, you as a black person could not live in a white man's house where the white man's daughter accepts you as her child, and the king treats you better than all his other subjects, and you are of a different race and they don't know. It would never happen.
But I'm not disputing the pigmentation and stuff. And this is where I'm saying I never disputed the pigmentation.
I'm not saying you're disputing, but I just use that as an example to show that religious leaders are not making connections.
Did I not just say
why do you think they didn't make a connection?
Well, obviously,
Some of them shouldn't even be in the church. Some of the pastors shouldn't even be pastors.
No, my question is,
I'm going to answer it for a second. Once again, I said, if, and I'm going to deal with Christianity again, if the pastor or the priest opens that Bible and reads it, right, and says he understands it, which means he's got to do his geography as well. He can't just speak. He can't just do English. If he does his geography, right, he will know where things are. He will know locations, right? Common sense should tell him, and that's why I said again, if these people that study the Bible read the Bible and tell me, get down and they say, oh, I got this degree and I got that degree and whatever, and I did my theology and everything, then yes, they're failing because there are some facts in the Bible that nobody can dispute. Has it been changed? Yes, it has been changed, because of course it has to be changed. Now go even beyond slavery. When wars, the Spain and beyond, in England and even before that, they went to war with the cross, with the cross, with Christianity, right? And so right there, they already had to skew the Bible to be able to go to war and say, okay, this is right and that is right. So they brought it to us, and like I said, when we came, and I'm coming back to North America, when we came to North America as slaves, a majority came from West Africa. They had the West African religions, right? They couldn't put us together so that we could communicate,
worship.
Right? Not only worship,
because we would have gotten stronger. Right? If you are together, you're going to communicate, and you would have maybe overthrown because they knew we were strong. They knew we were sensible.
Maintain that religious
to separate is to divide. To divide us is to make us real.
But the key point here that you raised, Pastor, is to keep us together would maintain our religious spirituality, which at the time was not Christianity.
But even when they discovered Christianity, you know, some of the oldest songs that they sang was Moses, that song of Moses, because their slaves identified with the Israelites. Right? And then they sang about, I think it was Canaan and all that, and that stuff. And that caused the slave masters to want to embrace the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church, once again, was saying, slaves, you got to follow the masters. Some of the Protestant churches, those were the songs that they were singing, which were taking them back. Not necessarily all the way back that you would have liked them to go to, but they started singing songs of freedom and identifying, right? So once again, it comes down to the people, right? And you said it, the church leaders. If you're going to look at the Bible and you're going to read the Bible and then say, oh, he came from Egypt and he came from here, but he's white, then it's wrong. And they have to use it to keep
church leaders don't really care about that.
Right.
So ordinary people like me and you really care about that. Church leaders really care about conversion and Christianity. They don't really care about history like that. Okay? They don't. No.
And you know what that means? That means we have a call. We're going to take this call. Welcome to Real Talk, Straight Talk. Who am I speaking with?
Pastor Thomas.
Good evening, Pastor Thomas. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. How are you guys?
We're good, thank you.
We're all good. As I know you follow us, we're heavily into the debate on the church, religion, and Black history. I'm pretty sure you've heard the various points, and we brought it back down to the religious leaders. Where do you stand on? What's your views?
Well, first of all, we don't have a religion. You have to understand where Christianity started from and where we were at place. We didn't have Christianity. We had our beliefs. And so you have to really go back and say, where did Christianity start from? Who started this form called Christianity? I don't have a religion, I have a way of life. And so you have to understand that Christianity, the way that the system has placed it does not belong to Black people. We have to go back and really understand about the Anglican Church, the United Church. How were these churches formed and developed? We have to understand where things started from in order to know where we're going. So I say this to say that we began our soul freedom journey as life began in Ethiopia. Now you have to start the research and the trail from there and try to figure out, where did this white Jesus come from? Where did this system that has been placed in society today came from? And what it is designed to do to a specific demographic of people. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Thomas, as usual. Like the professor said, religion is one of those subjects that's very touchy, and you cannot talk to certain Black people about religion because it's heavily ingrained in us that Jesus and Jesus is white. I will go back once again to the start of this conversation. Even though it's coming up today, it actually started on our Christmas show where the professor and I believe self and was it our lovely Angel, we started to talk about some of the misinformation. There's always going to be misinformation. And the reason for misinformation is that's what you have to do to a people that you are trying to keep down. You can't give them the right information.
Take away their concept of God and they're doomed.
And they're doomed, right? It's not a coincidence that no matter where you go in this world, no matter what race you're in, you believed in something. You believed. There was an innate belief, right? And nobody had to tell you. It was a sense, something that you were born with.
And that's so true. Right? You're actually born with it.
You're born with it. Science came in later on and tried to say that this, that, and the other, but science has also proven that the Bible exists. Mm-hmm. So if the Bible exists, right, then is that compatible with the science? And they try to say, no, it's not, because you know what, we this atom here and that atom there and that, but they can't get away from the fact that science has proven that the Bible exists, right? And now that's just a Christian Bible. Mm-hmm. But there are other religious artifacts and relics that are there that predate the Bible. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that's there has been a belief, and a belief is what binds us, humanity, together. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's not about my belief or your belief, or there is a belief.
Believe in something.
In something. Right? I come back to slavery days, and I said one of the first things they had to do, because especially coming through once again West Africa, was that they came with a belief. So they had to split us up. They made sure that when they went to the farms and wherever, that this person couldn't talk to that person, couldn't talk to that person, because if I can't talk to you, then I can't pass on my stories to you. At night when I'm struggling, the first thing you want to do is talk about your belief. And it's here right now. You start to struggle now, and the first thing you think about is your God.
And just separating us, you lose your identity, because if you speak the same language, you believe in the same stuff, then you become stronger. So the moment someone separates you, you lose your identity, because I can't indicate. I can't tell you how I feel. I can't share anything with you because we don't speak the same language.
I believe that's what you've been saying the entire time.
Yeah, I've been saying it.
Because you were taken away from our...
I have a pastor on record that actually called in and supported the arguments that I'm saying. But I want to include a few things, because I know we're running out of time. So you spoke about the cross, right? And I don't mean this in any bad way, so people please understand where I'm coming from. Think about when you were growing up as a kid, and anything that troubled your grandma, your great-grandma, they will always say, that boy is what? Crosses. Okay? And every day I think about it, I try to figure out, what did grandma mean? What did great-grandma mean? Could it be that everywhere that these Europeans went with the cross, that literally crosses follow? Right. It could be. I'm not saying.
But it was.
Okay?
Well, it was.
Okay,
they went with the cross. They went to war with the cross.
And crosses followed.
And crosses followed.
Okay, good. Do you know about the Ankh?
No, you actually started to educate
Well,
me.
the Ankh is an ancient Egyptian symbol of life. Okay? The top of the Ankh is shaped like a womb, because it signifies giving life, or the giver of life. There are many theories out there that where did the original cross come from? Was it a copy of the original Ankh? I'll even go a little bit further and say the 42 Confessions of the Mahat, which you find in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, if you read it. And I wonder every day, even before coming to the show, and I was thinking about the story of Moses, and I'm saying, Moses went up into these mountains, and he came back and told the people that there was this amplified voice speaking to him through bushes, and he came back with the 10 Commandments. But if you go through the 42 Confessions of the Mahat,
there is the 10 Commandments.
You realize that the 10 Commandments is right there.
Right.
So I'm saying, and I don't mean this in a bad way, was it a political move by Moses? Because he could not come out of the mountains and not give the people something. Was it because where did Moses go to school? In Egypt. He was a student in Egypt for 40 years. Okay? So, I think it's fair game if one could look at the 42 Confessions of the Mahat. I'll just read a few for those who are not familiar with it. I have not done iniquity. I have not robbed with violence. I have not stolen. I have done no murder. I have done no harm. I have not defrauded offerings. Okay? I have not diminished obligations. I have not plundered from people.
And just change the I shall not.
And I want to talk about the I, sister. Because you see the I in the Mahat, that is giving you personal responsibility. I have not done it. And when Moses came out of the mountains, that now becomes that. So that is removing the personal responsibility from you and placing it on somebody else. And I'm just saying these are conversations that religious leaders need to have. Okay? I'm not here to knock anyone's this or that, because it's still a learning process for me. it was the Arabs who conquered Africa and brought in Islam. Islam is not an indigenous religion of Africa, even though today a lot of Africans identify with that religion. It was the Europeans that brought in Christianity. And I'm just saying, we're at a time now where there's decolonization of education, decolonization of economics. It's unfair for religious leaders to hide and not join a conversation and say, we need to decolonize religion, because if you look at it, the impacts that it has on black people, and it's nothing good.
And I'm going to take it one step further. We're talking about religion. Religion is a business. Religion is a business. Right? There might have been a time that religion would have truly wanted to address the inequities, the inequalities of life.
Yeah.
Religion is a business. The Bible tells you, and it did say, talk about the religion of business in the last days. Right?
It's just that black people haven't figured out to get into that business.
but hold on. They are some. Let me tell you,
they do.
There are some mega churches out there that have understood the business of religion. The business of religion is like it's not to liberate, right? It's not to liberate, just like government. And I'll give you an example how I relate it to. There's a system in place, no matter which government you have. You're in a capitalistic society, a democracy, capitalistic society. How does it work? There's got to be X amount of poor. There's got to be X amount of middle class. There's got to be X amount of rich, right? The system cannot work if too many poor people get to middle class. The system breaks down. You go Dubai and certain those places where when Dubai was really rolling into money, they didn't have a poor class, so they had to bring in labor from East Indian labor, because they made it so that all their people got university education. So who was cleaning up? Who was doing all these things, right? So this is where the system goes. There's got to be a certain amount of poor, right? Black people have already been poor. How can you talk about liberating black people truly, right? What happens when, let's say, all right, God, we're going to give all the black people some money. We're going to make them educated. We're going to do this. We're going to help them along this way. Who replaces us?
So we had all that with somebody that is being oppressed. There's somebody at the bottom.
It's easier to keep down the person that's already down. Who replaces us? When I talk things like this to people, they don't shoot me on this. There's a system in place. There has to be a certain amount of poor to make the system work. Likewise, there has to be a certain amount of middle class, right? And so somebody has to replace. So every time you talk about we make progress, yes. You know what? We move from a bicycle to a Benz, and we think we made progress. But we didn't make progress.
Here's what I'm saying on that point, Colin, is that black people, you've said a lot of black people that are in mega churches, but black people, the church influence politics. Here we have a separation of two in theory, but it doesn't work like that because it's a church that really drive a lot of the political agenda. Now, I'm saying that you take even any time natural disaster. I'm from Jamaica. Earthquake doesn't come to Jamaica. A hurricane will be on the verge, but it turns last minute, go to Haiti. And the first thing that the religious people will say, they're working too much voodoo. They're working too much juju. That's the reason why Haiti is like this. So you see the religious people are trained to demonize even their original authentic forms of worship. Now, I have watched several documentaries, even Angel there. I was really mad at her when we did the Christmas show because I was asking her about authentic African religion, and she's like, where are they? It's a Roman Catholic this, it's a Roman Catholic that. And that didn't sit well with me, with someone coming from the continent, because I'm saying, what are our brothers and sisters doing over there to really preserve things? Now, it might not align with major beliefs, but there's a space for them. I would argue in the same way that there's a space for indigenous worship here in Canada.
But as I said,
hold on, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut everybody off, right? I'm upset. You guys attacked Angel. Angel wants to defend us. Hold on. So you know what? We're going to call this Revenge of Angel. We're going to call it part 2 because we're out of time. I held it on the last guy that attacked somebody. So people, this is another edition of Real Talk, Straight Talk. We got to come back with part 2. Definitely have to come back with part 2. We've got a few episodes in between there, but you know what? We're gonna follow the educators because we promised the educators to bring them back, I believe, on the 15th of March. So the week after, we're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about religion. We're gonna talk about the church. We're gonna continue in Black history. Like we like to say, we're Black 365 days a year. Black history should be discussed at all times. We are Black, and this is what, on behalf of everybody, I want to thank everybody for being here. My panel, right? We've got some people in the audience. Got to talk about our sponsors. Big shouts and thanks to of course, Up Like 7 Barbershop. We've been here for the last 3 weeks. Yes. Got to thank Angel from the Fix Hair Salon. Angel, we will be at the Fix next week, right? Big shouts to Paranite Bar and Grill. People, food, and of course parties on the weekend. Can't say enough about Jiggy and the crew over there. To all my Black businesses in London, Ontario, we support you. We want to hear from you. You know what? I'm even going to take it farther than that. To all Black businesses Canada-wide, you know, let's continue to do what we're supposed to do to our people, to everybody that watch this show. We'll see you next week. This is what we call a Faith to Black.
Bye.
I'm going to do it.
Angel.